Hey, care partners. Thanks for coming back. Teresa Youngstrom here. Thanks for joining me as we continue to explore different ways we can join people on their journey with brain failure, with some type of a dementia. It's complicated. There's lots of dementias. And recently I was talking with a family who I had worked with a couple of years ago. And in my mind, there was a happy ending. And it's interesting that for them, that didn't sit right. And we kind of had to clarify. So, um, in her mind, the happy ending was to fix her. And so it's important to talk about the goal. When we're caring for someone whose brain is in decline, it's really important to know what the goal is. And so fixing dementia at this point in time, we don't have the ability at the time of this recording. We're not figuring it out. We haven't figured out how to fix it. Besides, it's complicated knowing there are more than 120 diagnoses that give us symptoms of dementia, and your loved one's symptoms will be different from mine. And that can make it very complicated. But when we talk about, fixing things, what's the goal? The goal isn't really to fix them. I guess what I needed to change in her situation, let me tell you about her situation. So, a little case study here. Um, this was the woman who contacted me, the daughter in town, did not have a great relationship with her mom out of town. Mom lived half the country away. Okay. And, she had been living independently best she could. She had a roommate, which was good. They were 2 friends, and they were, in the late '70s, early '80s, and life was going pretty good, but her mom was starting to make bigger and bigger mistakes with money. Oh my goodness, just mistakes. And the roommate was now getting frustrated, and her family kinda wanted to pull her out of there to go live with them. So we were kind of in a pickle. Um, After a lot of time and hours, research and finding resources in that part of the country, resources, there are companies out there that can help you with placement, finding the right place because, I'm not going to know half the country away where the best location is for your loved one. And so it's going to take research and effort, but we figured out some great things. We found a great place. We found a place where they could afford that she could go, and she could even go on Medicaid when the money ran out. So lots of good things happening. Um, Her mom, her demeanor had been grumpy, and but she needed purpose. We'll talk more about that. So now we are here a couple of years out, and I happen to be talking with her, and her mom's still there, her mom's still functioning. The people love her, and they understand her, and they're working with her, and loving her through this challenge. And she does have now a sister that's nearby, so a daughter nearby. So that all sounds like a happy ending, doesn't it? But in her world, it was traumatic getting her mom to that point. And still her mom is it's ongoing with challenges. Challenges in that, she's still confused. Challenges when she talks to her on the phone, she's still a little agitated about being there. But I'll tell you something that has worked out. And the reason I see it as a happy ending is that they were able to give her purpose. She worked in a laundromat in years past in her life, in a lot of years in her adult life. And even though she's older, every morning she gets up and her job is to go do the laundry at the community. So they let her help with the laundry. Let her fold laundry at the community, and it keeps her busy. She sleeps better. She's physically active. She's out of the bed. Her skin's good. She's up walking around, and there's a lot of good things about that. So, we have changed several things to get her in a safe place around people who care, caregivers around, medication is being administered properly. She has good nutrition. So, and we'll talk more about that. But did we fix her? So the goal isn't to fix people because who wants to be fixed anyway? I don't want to be fixed. Do you want to be fixed? Besides, you and I have talked that half of these people don't realize they need to be fixed anyway. Those that have developed that anosognosia where they can't see their deficit anymore and it's all your fault anyway. They're paranoid, suspicious. You know the type. Never wrong, always the victim. And we can work with that. We just need a new care plan. We need their help. And so in this situation in this community, they need her help. They definitely need her help because who would do the laundry? if she wasn't there and they've given her purpose. And so sometimes we wanna fix people, but that really can't be the goal. I would say the goal when I even do a consultation is to find out what the family is hoping for, and what we can move towards, and is it realistic? Um, I know in my dad's situation, he just plain did not want my mom to have dementia. And, so he placated that and, did explain stuff to her for a couple of years to her great agitation. But in his mind, he figured he could fix it if he would just accommodate her needs and keep explaining it until she would finally have that aha moment. Some of you are out there trying to fix it that way. You're doing a lot of explaining. You're using your logic with these individuals who maybe don't have logic anymore. So how can we love them differently without using a lot of logic? How can we accept and agree? Go with the flow. Allow them to be right when they're really wrong in order to keep the peace, you know? And it took dad a couple of years, and then finally he got the hang of it, and he learned to go along with her. It was so hard, though, for someone who's lived with someone, they've been their best friend for 60 plus years, and all of a sudden they're not making sense, and for you to go along with that, it was definitely hard. So we see denial sometimes and we think we can fix people, but we really we really can't fix people. Some families, you know, want want the happy ending, and it's unrealistic. But I can tell you about a situation recently where I had a gentleman come back and say, "You know what? We got my dad finally into that memory care, and that it was a challenge. We could write a little book on that situation because every situation's different and there will be challenges. It's life is hard, and you know what? We have to keep every day putting one foot in front of the other. Take a deep breath and get ready to embrace it, right? No one ever said it would be easy. And, but this family came back and said, "You know what? You gave my dad the best last 6 months of his life," and we rarely hear that. And so what had happened, once we did finally get him into memory care, initially it was bumpy, but once he settled in, do you know he found someone there that he was attracted to, another patient, but they would sit and hold hands, and in their minds, they were married. Eventually, they came to that realization that they thought they were married, and the son came back and told me, "My dad has never been happier in his life." And these last several years of him struggling on his own, and we didn't know what to do, and he was still driving, and that was a problem, and he wasn't eating right, and just all the worry and stress about that. And then to see his dad, fall in love with his woman, and they just mutually just enjoyed each other's presence and holding hands. And he said, "You gave him the best last 6 months of his life." So that I feel is a happy ending. But so happy ending is gonna be, well, I don't know, we kinda have to clarify and go back and decide what are the goals? Um, what are the goals when we're caring for someone? And what we really need to do is join them on the journey, right? Um, let's see. Yeah, it's other times I've been told that, their person went into a community and fixing them looked like just sedating them into submission. And we gotta throw it out there and talk about it because it does happen. And there are some people that feel that's the way you care for people living with brain change and dementia when they're not making sense, get them just to quit acting up. And, so sedating them into submission. There's a lot of experimentation going on right now with CBD oil, and I've heard good things about that. I have no personal experience, and so I can't really advise any of you on that. But when I say sedating into submission, that usually is in a community, in the hospital where we're giving big drugs, multiple drugs, in order to get that person to pipe down. And you know how I feel about that. I don't really love robbing someone of their life. I don't think that's any life, to just sedate someone into submission. What quality of life is that? I've heard of other communities using something like an Ativan Benadryl Haldol gel or cream or something like that. They're experimenting with that. I think that was something that came about. They were using it for chemotherapy patients who had that nausea that just won't go away, and that they were working on that. But I was listening to a speaker last week talking about specifically her specialty is Lewy body and can be very difficult to manage, and that the place where her loved one went, that's what they wanted to do, was to apply this cream at night to get him um, to be sedated. And so, you know what, you guys got to make those decisions on your own. I just think you need to have a heads up, and it's okay when you move your loved one into a place to write into the contract that they need to talk to you before changing or adding any medications. Maybe you tell them that your person's allergic to Haldol because it's a terrible drug and should never be used with our loved ones. Um, so that, the ABH, that's what that is, Ativan Benadryl, and Haldol. Benadryl is not really a good drug for seniors in general. It's not good for our brains. And so you're gonna have different I know you're gonna have different ideas on this, and that's okay. I want you to think. I want you to think about going forward and what could happen. I want you to have experience to know, just to be on the wiser side of things and just have a heads up, that there are some places that feel their job is to sedate these individuals into submission. And I just want to stop and think about quality of life and what is the goal of that. Since we can't really fix dementia, what do we do in order to come alongside and join them? I love Teepa Snow, and she's going to be on the podcast. But she has a method called, she talks about the six pieces of the puzzle, and there are the extrinsic things and the intrinsics, and certain things you can or can't change. So if we think about her six pieces of the puzzle, got this nice little she sells these nice little sheets for you, six pieces of the puzzle. But she talks about so time is on there. Would time be something we can control or something we can't control? How much time we spend with our loved one? Yeah, we can control that. We can definitely control that. How about the stakeholders? Who's involved? Your team. I'm forever encouraging families to create this team. They're going to need help. I needed help. You're going to need help. Right? This will take you down, make you sick. Next thing you know, you're in the hospital, and who's taking care of your loved one? So you're going to need help. You're going to need stakeholders, which means you really need to rack your brain and think about who cares about your loved one, or who are you going to hire to help you care for your loved one. But trust me, there are people in your life who would be willing to come over and sit with mom or dad and do a puzzle, or fill the bird feeders, or do some activity that they enjoy, play cards, and it would allow you time to get out. Do you just rush that in and explain everything that this person has to sit with them because they're incapable of being alone? No, 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 no. I would have them show up unannounced, first of all, and welcome them there. And what isn't this pleasant? And maybe you don't leave initially. Maybe you stay and we build relationship. It's all about relationship and helping them feel comfortable with the situation. There are individuals with brain change who don't think they need a caregiver and don't think they need someone there to care for them. So if we can do this, we can bring in help under the guise of um, just someone wanting to visit. That's awesome. That is awesome. Or needing help with something, really need your help sorting all these nuts and bolts and everything. Gosh, and you're good at this. So it would save me a lot of time if you could help. And so I would say think about who you could use, and then the hours of time that are hard to get someone to volunteer to come over and help you, a family member, friend, neighbor, someone from your place of worship, whatever. Um, and then those places, maybe those are the spots where you hire people in. If your person is going to be up all night, you can't manage that for long. It's interesting that early in my nursing career, I did private duty for a family who the gentleman had Parkinson's, and he was also a choke hazard. He was in a hospital bed, but he was up all night. His night and day was flipped. and she couldn't fix it at this point. The wife couldn't, so she just needed to bring in help to be with him just in case he started to cough and needed suctioning, just in case, or to entertain him or to be with him and social, have just someone to interact with and not watch TV all night. And so that works. So think about your stakeholders. That's someone you can control. What about health changes for the person you're caring for? Would you say that's something you can control or something we can't control? Yeah, we can't control that. Things are going to happen. Things are going to decline. Brains are going to decline. They may develop, I don't know, a gallbladder problem. They may develop stomach issues, or who knows? They might have swelling on their ankles and have issues there, cellulitis. So we can't control the person. We can't control, yeah, their health. We can't control the person, their health, and the other thing we really can't control is brain change. The rate at which these diseases affect our individual. There are some of these diagnoses that are more short term, but some of them, if we get the rest of their comorbidities and their health care functioning well, they may live quite a long time. I know my mom, it was a decade of decline, but there are some that live longer. And so we can't control that. We can control their environment, so where they live, do we keep them at home? Do we need to go to a community? And there's great thought and time and effort that needs to go into those things because change is really hard for a broken brain. Change is very hard. Do not willy-nilly move your person from place to place. Trust me, they'll spiral down. They'll act out. It's too confusing and it'll be stressful for them. And I've watched that to the point where then they get so anxious they're acting out, and then the the place you determined was the right place says they can't stay here. They're too much trouble. And they get sent out to the behavior unit and the roller coaster of that. And it's terrible. And it involves lots of drugs typically. I don't want that to happen for your loved one. Okay. So Tipa talks about there are pieces of the puzzle, things we can control: time, stakeholders, environment. Excuse me. And there are things we can't control. We can't control people. We can't control the person, the disease, or their other health issues. And so let's try and focus. Let's try and set goals around what we can control. Um, so I would say when we think about the goals, most people that I do a consultation with, they may have the goal of safety for their loved one. So, how do we provide safety? That's a big question. Because what is safe, and what can we allow, and what do we need to relax a little bit on, as to whether they're safe or not. But eventually, we will have to bring help in, or they'll have to go somewhere. I can't say that enough to you. Eventually, hear me. We'll have to bring in help or they'll have to go somewhere. It's just the nature of this beast, this terrible disease we call dementia. And our brains decline and we will need to bring in help. Okay. So don't wait too long to do that. I like to profess we have our plan B ready to go all the time. Have your plan B because you just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And so it's just so good to know if if at home doesn't work out, this is where we're going. And maybe you go ahead and have your name on a bed there so that you're on the waiting list. The good places always have waiting lists. What's that? The good places always have waiting lists, typically. So you want your name on the waiting list. And here's the other thing. I wouldn't just count on someone else telling you that's the place to go. I'm going to go look at that place. I'm going to walk through the halls and listen and smell and look and see, is it clean? How are they interacting with their residents? Do the residents seem content, happy, comfortable? Are the smells okay? Occasionally there's a smell, but there shouldn't be smells every time you walk in, right? That's nurse talking. So sorry about that. Get more of that than you want. TMI. So yeah, for safety, how do we provide that? Bringing in people, best environment, those are things we can change. Hygiene. A lot of folks have their goal is, I just want her to shower every day. Well, maybe. I don't think that's at the top of the list. I think you building a great relationship with this person would be at the top of the list. They need to know you're on their team. Okay. And so I wouldn't have every decision that involves change coming from you. We may have to say it's coming from the doctor or somebody else, a social worker out there in nowhere's land, so that they're not blaming you for all the things that are going on and all the change that's coming. I want them to see you as on their team. I want you to have that kind of relationship with this person. So whether you come in and they're in a pretty happy place, they're happy to see you, or will you come in, they're upset about something, well, you need to have technique to validate their position at that moment and go along with whatever's going on and de-escalate the energy of the situation and then redirect them back to their happy place. That's not the time for you to finger wag them down or correct them or tell them how hard it was for you to get there today on your busy schedule. Yikes, points off. That's not what we do. Okay. So it does take some skills. It's interesting. I was talking to a group of colleagues, and there are care locations that feel like retirement communities, memory care, think they can just watch a video and understand how to care for people living with brain change. And I just want to tell you that there's always more. There's always more, and it would be great to talk to someone who's lived it, walked through it, studies it, and is doing it on a regular basis. Videos are great, but I can watch a video on taking your appendix out, but I don't think you want me to get the knife and get busy on that. So, and I wouldn't either. But sometimes, and true confession, sometimes we have what's called compound ignorance. So we don't know what we don't know. And that was me caring for my mom. Because when she threw me out of the blankety blank house, I thought, "How did that just happen?" My goodness. I mean, we had a great relationship. How could that happen? For 40 plus years, we'd had a great relationship. And all of a sudden, she throws me out of the house. And so the sad part was, even though I'd been a nurse for 30 years and thought I understood dementia, and I'd done my research, I had worked in a memory care and I had helped start a private duty company. And I was the one doing the education on the memory care. Of course, came back and did some better education once I lived through some things and had some experience. But if you really want to train people up right, make sure you've got a great trainer. There are great people out there who have the education and the skill sets to come alongside and train up your staff. Videos are great. I have a video. You can stream my video if you want to. But, better, definitely hands-on. In my video, there are at least 3 breakout sessions where you, with someone at your organization, will do some activities, because I think you really have to do some activities you have to practice great dementia care. You have to practice. You can't just read about it, watch it on a video, and then when all of the stuff hits the fan at night with your individual who wants to go home and they're screaming about wanting to go home, and if your person doesn't have some skills to know how to validate that and de-escalate that energy, boy, things get crazy. And then we end up just 911ing this person to the hospital. And I just don't find that as acceptable that we just don't have the skills. If you're going to run some of these places, I want you to have the skills. So I just want you to dig in a little deeper and know that just watching a video is not going to get it for you. All right, I digress. Let's get back into the goals. And so, usually, the goal of care for people seeking counsel with me, they want safety for their loved one, they want good hygiene, they want good nutrition. And this is important. I had one family who all they could get her to eat were some frozen and microwaved White Castle, which is a franchise, a hamburger franchise, and White Castle hamburgers, and that's just what they fed her. And it can be better than that, but at least she was taking something in. But nutrition is important. Um, I think instead of fixing these individuals, just like you and I are doing our best to stay healthy to not get dementia, caring for that individual once this brain change starts is very important too. So thinking about nutrition, thinking about physical activity, thinking about good sleep, thinking about drinking their water, good hydration, and whatever medication or supplements they need. These things are just so very important. They need quiet time. They need time to recover from the day. Um, but they need, joy in their life too. But I also think purpose is just a huge thing. Purpose is a huge thing. And so I have some families that think if she would just sit in front of the TV and be quiet, we'd be happy. But that's really not life, guys. And so these individuals are going to need purpose. What's that look like? Well, I told you about my lady out west, and they have her helping with the laundry, and that gives her great purpose. So, what could your purpose be? I know for my mom being wheelchair bound, I, for a season, was able to take my coupons out there back in the day when you got the newspaper, and you had all these coupons that would come on Sundays. Some of you were too young to remember any of that. Okay, but there were coupons that would come in the mail and give her a little pair of safe scissors. And she enjoyed that. She enjoyed doing something for me. It gave her purpose. It took up time. It wasn't just time in front of the TV. She would nap better after she'd had an activity, and so maybe that's their purpose. There are lots of different things. I cared for an individual with a family or counseled a family, a gentleman who definitely had dementia, but his passion was to mow the lawn. Now they had a fenced in yard in the back, and he had a riding lawnmower, and she'd watch him, but he would mow for hours. He would mow day after day. But you know what? Gave him purpose, got him out of the house, got him out of bed, out of the recliner. It was stimulating to him. It was some physical activity, and it brought him great joy in that purpose. And so again, just another idea. Um, yeah. So what are you going to do to find purpose? Had another one on here. Oh yeah. So there was a woman who, if you get to know your individual, like for those of you that are caring for others, if you get to know your person well enough, you know what their passions are, what they love, what they have experience doing. I came onto a unit once, and there was a woman who was new on that memory care. She was sharp, though. She looked like you and I, and you wouldn't have known that she was one of the patients, right? One of the residents there. She was sharp. And I heard her say, "There's a way to get out of here," as I walked past her. I wasn't there to see her, but there's a way to get out of here. I thought, "Okay." So it wasn't any of my business. I went on and was there to see the lady I was there to see. And, but the next time I came, not only was she near, the elevators, but she had, a group of people with her. She had someone on a walker, someone in a wheelchair, and other people. She had gathered up some residents, and she had a little group now, and, there was a room around the elevator, and you would hear a doorbell. So when you came up the elevator, you'd push the doorbell, and the staff knew then someone was waiting inside that little room, so that they didn't want the residents to see the elevators, okay? And different companies do different things to create a facade. This company had, a room around it with 2 doors. One would take you into the dining room, one would take you into the community area. And so, um, as I came onto the unit that day, she had gathered a little entourage, and I heard her say it again. The doorbell rang as I walked past her, and she said, "There's a way to get out of here." And so they came to me and said, "What are we gonna do with her?" She can't stay if she's forever exit seeking. And I said, "Well, tell me more about her." And it turned out she had been a nurse all of her life, and she was still her body, her physical health was incredible, guys. And her brain was still working. She had connected the dots that doorbell rings and people come and go. And so sharper than the average bear. Awesome. Let's utilize that. Let's let her be. And so I said to them, "Well, I have an idea. I don't know if it'll work." And so I said, "Do you have a clipboard, piece of paper, and a pen?" And so I went to her, greeted her, told her, I was a nurse and I had heard she was a nurse. And I was so excited to meet a colleague, who was here on this unit. And I asked her if she could help me, because I said, "You know what? We are short staffed again, and I don't have anyone to be in charge of the clipboard." And she looked at me and she looked at the clipboard, and I said, "I know you're a nurse. I know you got lots of experience, and I know you won't need to be trained on this." And I had drawn a bunch of lines on the paper, and I put some fictitious names, well, actually, my family members' names down the side column. Lots of names, and there were lots of, blocks to check. And I told her, I said, "You know, we're responsible for this clipboard, and I don't have anybody to maintain it. And if you could just take care of the clipboard. And you know what? I fully believe you have great skills, and wherever you put a check mark will be appropriate, and it will just help us out immensely. If you could volunteer in this way, it would help us immensely." And so she looked at the clipboard. She took the clipboard. She took the pen, and she left her entourage. I'm not kidding. It was amazing. And so, guys, it doesn't always work that well, but that day it did. And so you just need to try things. And I'm telling you what, she took that clipboard and she started walking around the unit, walking around, looking at you. Hmm. Look you up and down. Look this person up and down. And then she would make a check on the clipboard. It was wonderful. And so she carried the clipboard around 24/7. They'd give her a new piece of paper every day with new names and or it didn't matter what names, just a bunch of new squares to check. And so in the first week, she carried the clipboard 24/7. And like when they would do an activity, she began to sit down and join the activities though, but she kept her clipboard. And so, you know what, guys, it was a couple of weeks, her and the clipboard. And then she started getting up and leaving the clipboard. It wasn't as important, but she needed some way to acclimate onto that unit. And that worked. And so if you know more about your person, maybe it's possible that you could implement something like that, give them a job, give them a task, give them I think purpose is just so, so huge. And so happy ending, you know, it's a great goal, but it may not sound like "and happily ever after." That may not be it, but it might be if we can provide, a quality of life, if we can provide decreased stress, if we can provide decreased agitation without having to sedate them into submission, give them more comfort. But if we can actually, increase their care as this dementia robs them of their ability to do things. I think the toughest part is that it's unpredictable and I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. But just know there's people out there to help you. There's techniques. There's Teepa Snow. There's Teresa Youngstrom, Better Approach to Memory Care. We can do a consultation and come up with some great techniques or great ideas. Be happy to share my experiences with you on how we can come alongside. Okay, so maybe we're not fixing them, but we can come alongside, join them on the journey, right? With a goal of making things better and giving them a quality of life. I think that is just so important. And you know what? I believe you got this.